Hi witchlings, welcome back to my channel. It's me, your local chaotic witchon. Today's topic is 3 easy protection spells for every witch. I know I've done some content revisiting my old videos on protection, but I figured that just giving spell formulas or spells that I really like in different categories like protection, banishing, binding, etc. could be really beneficial to some of my viewers and possibly people who haven't seen my content before. I did formulate all of these personally except for one, which is from Grove Dotted Witchery by Bree Nagarin, although it is kind of one interpretation of a well-known and well-used spell. So I'm going to be going through materials, how to make it, and showing you an example of that kind of spell if I have one around my home. So to start off, my first favorite protection spell for every witch is a plant ward protection. A plant ward is basically using a plant as a ward to protect the home. There are lots of different ways of creating a plant ward, but this is my personal favorite. You're going to need a healthy and well-growing plant, a symbol, petition, incantation, or sigil. So you'll need a pen and a piece of paper and a little bit of time. And then you're going to you can either choose to put the sigil and the symbol, the incantation, in the roots of the plant or put it in the soil of the plant. So I will talk through, I think I actually have one of the symbols that I made. Yeah. So this was my process. And basically there are a few different ways to create an intention to give to this plant. Since plants are living, breathing souls, because I'm an animist, I do believe that all living things contain that soul. It's really easy to just talk to them and ask them for assistance. So you could create a petition to give to the plant itself. I like creating a sigil, and by burying it in the soil and allowing it, disintegrate over time, I am slowly feeding that plant the sigil, and that plant is slowly charging the sigil. So the differences between symbol, petition, incantation, and sigil. Let's go through them really quickly. A symbol is just going to be a symbol. This could be something like a pentagram, a cross, etc. Symbols are not necessarily imbued with power, although you can imbue them with power. And a petition is a very specific way of writing an intention for something. There are lots of different ways to go through petitions. I believe it's seen in the hoodoo tradition as well as other specific folk magics. And I'm not going to talk specifically about petitions in the hoodoo tradition. I'm going to talk about them the way that I learned to do them, which was through my friend. So you start by writing down what you want your intention or kind of what you want to come to fruition. I haven't written a petition in 3 times, and then 3 times over that, and then 3 times over that. So a total of 9 times written. And then depending on whether you're bringing something in or pushing something out, you turn the paper a certain way and write again 9 times over it. I'm not great with petitions. So I'll just plug the Witch of Wanderlust video if you want to learn more about petitions. So you can go do that. There are certain types of papers that are used more frequently in certain folk magics for petition paper. I was once given some hand-pressed floral, hand-pressed paper for petition writing, but if you don't have that, that's okay. Now, and then incantation is you're going to be, I think incantation, it has to do a series of words that is a magic spell or charm. So this incantation could be an invocation of a specific entity. It could just be recited verbally over the plant. And when I say incantation, I do mean kind of like a verbal charm or a charm that is typically verbal written on piece of paper. My favorite way of doing it is, of course, a sigil, which I am going to be making a complete sigil crafting video upcoming. I don't know when it's getting posted. But there is a sigil crafting video coming. There are a lot of videos online to help with sigil crafting. To start off, you're going to have a intention. So let's say, may all ill will sent to blank or blank be used by this plant to grow stronger and bigger, or be absorbed by this plant to grow stronger and bigger. Obviously, I did not recite this word for word, and I'm not going to show you the sigil because this is one of my protection words. And then you do a specific, you're gonna do a little code, cipher with letters and numbers. I like to write 1 through 9 and write the alphabet underneath it, match up the alphabet to the numbers, and then you end up with a conglomerate of numbers that you then trace onto a clock face. But from there you have a symbol, and you can take that symbol imbued with intention and bury it in your plant. The reason that I like to bury the sigil, the piece of paper in the plant, is not only because it takes a really long time for the sigil to dissolve, but it's very physical, it's very practical for me. When I can, like putting it in the roots of the plant, so the plant kind of intertwines with it and it directly feeds the plant. But just putting it in the pot or near the plant also works. It's still feeding the energy to this plant. The goal of a plant ward is to either have the plant absorb any harm sent your way and helping it to grow stronger. So if you have a really healthy plant, it should be able to absorb this no problem. You can also direct the plant to, if something severe is sent your way, it gives you a warning. It gives you a sign. This could be yellowing leaves. This could be needing a repot. There are lots of different ways of doing this. There are certain plants that are heavily associated with protection. Aloe vera is one that I really like using for protection wards. I also am partial to pothos plants because they are really hardy and it's really hard to kill them. So I know if the pothos dies, that it definitely was something magic related, and because I haven't had a pothos die at all, ever, unless it's magic related. The other thing you can do is, and with all of your plants, and with your plant ward in particular, if there are any infestations of pests, this to me is also kind of a trademark sign that someone has thrown something your way. And you can write that into your intention or your petition that it will get a pest infestation if something is thrown your way. But I've noticed that even without doing that, that shit happens when there's a lot of bad energy around, and you gotta knock it out with multiple things. So this plant wards are one of my favorites just because I get to see my plant fucking thrive off of the harm that people send me. Number 2 is a witch bottle or witch jar. This one is the recipe from Grove Daughter Witchery, but there are many different ways that people create these. I did do a more in-depth witch jar, witch bottle video. If you want to see me talk more about the history and different kind of traditional methods, this one I'm going to be looking at, and I kind of adapted it from Grove Daughter Witchery because I really liked it. So you're gonna need a glass bottle and a cork. I typically do glass bottle, spoonfuls of earth. You're gonna use something that has to do with something sharp, nails, pins. I typically use little rusty nails. There's vinegar is typically involved. Vinegar, I believe, is a substitute for urine. You can also, I add boar oil to mine consistently, and a few other purification herbs. And here we got nails, pins, vinegar. In this particular home protection witch bottle, you use a chimer, taper candle, a plant pot, and potting soil. And the herbs used are salt, black peppercorns, angelica root, and witch hazel. You add all of them together, say this particular incantation, add vinegar most of the way, vinegar made from cider or red wine, or you can just use plain old white vinegar. If you want to add a personal connection but aren't comfortable using urine, you can always spit in the bottle. I use hair or fingernails. Once you've added all of it, you're going to cork it and seal it with wax. Color doesn't particularly matter for the purposes. And in this particular spell, in Brina Garen spell, you bury the witch bottle in a planter pot and you keep the pot somewhere near your home, such as on the front or back porch. Bury the pot up to the rim in your garden or set it on an interior windowsill. And you can grow whatever you like in the pot, provided there is room. The presence of the sealed bottle should not have any adverse effects on the plant. If you move out of your current residence, take the planter pot with you with the bottle inside, or dig up and dismantle the witch bottle before you leave. The protective charm is tied to the property and the house itself, and if you're trying to transfer it, it's going to have unsatisfactory results. Once you get settled in your new home, create a brand new witch bottle and bury it on the property there. I do love the idea of burying it in a planter pot, because I personally am, you traditionally would bury the witch bottle on your property. I always feel a little weird about burying things in the dirt. And also, it's winter, so it's freezing. I can't do that. I used to take my old witch bottle and keep it near the front door behind my family's owl statue. And then I disposed of it when I moved because it's a completely different house. And I haven't had a chance to make my witch bottle quite yet. I do love the planter because that way you don't bury it in the land and forget where it is. Nothing leaks into the soil that could harm it. I like the, if you bury a plant in there, you can also just see the way the plant behaves with the witch bottle there. A few notes that I love. I do love the spoonful of earth from your yard for a protection spell. Nails, pins, vinegar. Other things that I've noted in witch bottles that I've used or I notice other people use are mustard seeds or fennel seeds. Seeds historically are associated with evil spirits or like witches having to stop and count them, or they get stuck in the jar trying to count the seeds and then they get confused and they get, like a spirit trapping. And I love that. In terms of purifying and protective herbs, that's totally up to you. I like making bottles that are part protective and part fuck around and find out. Which is why I add war oil or a little bit like something nasty. I typically use really small jars. This is the size that I'll typically go for, just because they're easier to conceal, they are easier to bury. I like the idea that Brina Garen talks about of sealing it with a specific handle so it can't leak. I actually lost cork for this bottle, which means I need to find a new bottle for my witch bottle. You can also do a jar. I've noticed that depending on the contents of the witch jar or the witch bottle, sometimes a leak. I think my last witch jar was under my bed and leaked onto my floor, which my mom was not happy about and was not a good vibe. This is kind of, I don't have any candle spells in this protection, but really, witch jars, you go off of one, what you have accessible to you and two, what you would do in your tradition or in your culture. So witch jars are not typically found in Italian American folk magic, but Abatini bags are, so I may substitute the jar for an Abatini bag for the home, which I will not be sharing because I don't want to. My third and final little charm or protection is a evil eye charm to protect a home. What you're going to need for this is a Nazar amulet or another talisman associated with protection against the evil eye. This could be a string of garlic, this could be a cornicello, this could be a goat horn. Really whatever is associated in your particular practice and culture with protecting against the evil eye or malocchio. You're going to take a protective water of your choice. I typically go for something that I have made myself and something that has a lot of ancestral herbal allies in it. So rue water that I've made, a panacea oil, which is a cure-all herb oil that I made, or St. John's water is what I typically use. Then you're going to draw a symbol that you associate with protection on the charm. This could be a cross, a pentacle, pentagram, eye shape, anything. And you're going to do a blessing ritual. So for me, a traditional blessing ritual is 9 Hail Marys or 9 Our Fathers. If you don't want to use Catholic prayers, you can use something different. Different practices and different traditions will have different ways of blessing objects. I like to use 9 Hail Marys. That's just my go-to blessing ritual. You can do 9 prayers to Apollo, 9 prayers to Ecate, 9 prayers to Diana. You could just do 9 prayers of something you made up. And then from there, I do the, sign the symbol 9 times. I choose 9 because it's a holy number in folk Catholicism. It's a multiple? 3 times 3. Yeah, so it's a multiple of 3, and 3 is like Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So 6 is another multiple. All multiples of 3 are typically considered and revered as holy numbers. But I like 9. 9's a good number. 9 is how many days are in a novena. You do a 9-day candle. 10 out of 10. Love it. You can do less than that. You could do 7. You could do 6. Formulating a blessing ritual is typically very personal to one's practice. You could also just immerse this charm in the water and speak an incantation over it, speak an intention over it, then hang it up. You don't necessarily need to do a blessing ritual if you have another way of imbuing the charm with protection, such as you put the charm in the middle, candles around it, let the candles burn down and feed the charm. And each candle has something like written on it, like protection, power, return to sender. And so you have all these charm candles feeding this charm. That's one example. It really is up to you, but then what you can do is you can hang the charm in your front door or near one of your doors. I specifically asked the charm to break when it has completed its service to me. So, and it is typically seen with like evil eye charms that they break when they have done their job and protected you or absorbed something. I had like a coral necklace break recently. I had, we have like the evil eye bracelets that break. So this is something that like it will break when it absorbs something so insane, so big that it can't do anymore. And once that's broken, I will probably dispose of it in somewhere far away from home, thank it for its service, dispose of it in running water, which I don't know if I would do. Clean it under running water, then dispose of it far away from home and replace it with another charm. If you want, you can redo this blessing ritual or the charming ritual every month or so. I haven't felt the need to do that just because a lot of evil eye amulets and talismans already have a lot of protection imbued into them. You're just kind of adding a little direction and intention for your specific purpose, but you don't necessarily need to do it so frequently. But that's just my personal opinion, and everyone is going to have a different one. Those are my 3 protection spells that I feel like every witch can do because they are so amenable to your practice and what you like. They also really work with what you have on hand. They're not necessarily something that you need very specific ingredients for, and because you can kind of hide them very easily, not necessarily with the evil eye charm, but the other 2 you can hide very easily. They are good for witches who are maybe not out about their practice yet. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Remember to drink water. If you want, you can subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, turn the bell on, but absolutely no pressure. Have an amazing rest of your day. Siate Benedetti.